Good afternoon. Welcome back. I'm Chris Worden. This is Andy Jones-Wilkins, and we're here to talk about the next big thing that's coming up on our calendar, the Cocodona 250. Were you in Arizona last year when Cocodona took place? I know you would.
No, I was not. I arrived in July, so this is my inaugural Cocodona, and in fact, it's my first time witnessing a 200.
Really?
Which I understand is a totally different ball game, so I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. One of the cool things about doing our homework for this race, I don't know if you feel the same way, is that it's a different set of names. Like, you have your usual suspects for your 100Ks and your 100 milers, and you see a lot of those names, and you tend to gravitate towards those names when you're talking about the contender list. You know, the guys and girls who are going to, be familiar names. You're going to think, oh, well, this is going to be their ball game. But 200 plus miles completely changes the way that you look at it. Runners who are not known for being, quote, fast, maybe in the 100K to 100 mile range, all of a sudden become like big time players in the 200 and up mile range. Whereas the runners who maybe you're used to seeing, golden ticket runners who might, normally be at the top, might find themselves further down. We saw that, as an example. Eric Senseman had a very admirable race last year. Of course, Aravaipa and Steep Life Media did a film about it. But at the same time, you're talking about a guy who was a Western States Golden Ticket winner who was in the 10th, 12th place range. That's an unusual thing.
It's funny you mentioned the whole different cast of characters. I remember a few years ago, Jason Coop, who I work with at CTS, we were preparing for a podcast to talk about 200s. It was 2021, and he had gone to a couple of them in a couple of the Triple Crown hundreds,
yes,
the Tahoe and the Moab. And he's like, Andy, you wouldn't believe it. I go there, I don't know anybody. It's all different people, and I found that really intriguing because we were used to going to ultras and seeing, but it does bring out a kind of a different breed, a different group, and we'll talk about some of those today. But again, as I've wanted to witness this for a while, and so you all have allowed me to come on the live stream a little late this year so I can have a chance to volunteer. I really wanted to get a sense, so I'm going to volunteer on Monday up at Crown King and then make my way into the live stream booth. But I can't wait.
It's pretty amazing. So have I ever told you how I first found out about Cocodona?
No.
So flashback to July 2018. I'm hanging out at the famous Rum Bar, back when it was still a thing, in Silverton, Colorado. It was myself, Jamil, and Tom Rogozinski, multiple Triple Crown of 200s runner. He's done it all. He's based out of Oregon, super nice guy, educator like you as well. And he and Jamil were talking, and I'm just sitting there having a drink and listening to them talk, and Jamil is peppering him with questions left and right. Very specific questions about his experience in 200s. And after, 30 minutes or so, I finally say, you got something on your mind? And Jamil looks at me and goes, well, I'm running Tahoe next month. And I'm like, oh, well, that's awesome. Good luck to you. Anything else? No. Fast forward maybe another couple of beverages down the line. Jamil turns to me and says, so it's called Cocodona. And of course, then and what's funny about that is that the one thing that he asked was that I was sworn to secrecy because this was 2018. The first race didn't take place till 2021. This is something that he's been planning and wanting to do. He and Anthony Culpepper had this in their mind for many years. And so now that it's come to fruition and it's become one of the big deals in terms of American ultra running live streaming, because we carry as much of the race as we do, it's taken on a life of its own. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
I remember when it first became kind of a public thing, talking to Jamil about it, because we for years had talked about the phenomenon at UTMB of going into the towns and the people in the towns coming and watching, and that's not the only part of this vision, but it was a huge part of his vision. And as we talk about the course, I mean, going into these various communities, some practically ghost town communities, others full-fledged, mid-sized towns and cities here in Arizona. It's just a fantastic little, not little, big glimpse into our state.
Yeah.
That you traverse on foot. Just incredible.
And people are starting to pick up on it. Like, more people are understanding and learning about and realizing what Cocodona is and how awesome these athletes are. I mean, the first year it might have been kind of weird and some communities were not entirely, excited about it, but they learned that, heck, this is a really cool thing. And so now it seems like everybody's all on the same page, which is good. I mean, it's, I get the kind of wait and see approach. You don't want to have a race come in and be a negative factor or destructive force, but if you can find that balance between being able to provide an amazing experience for the racers and also bring something positive and more eyes to the community, I think that everybody comes out ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things that we're going to do, we're going to actually pull away. By the way, this is inaugural year, the story about the first ever Cocodona 250. If you haven't watched it, it's about 35, 40 minutes. It's amazing. It is one of the coolest films about trail running I've ever seen. I get emotional. The first time I saw it, I had tears in my eyes because it was just like seeing how much these runners put into it, and it's a story of grit. It's a story of energy, and Jeff Garmeyer and Michael Versteeg are absolutely fantastic in it.
Well, and there were some incredible surprises that year, and
for sure
it took them so much longer to do it than
than
predicted, and I mean there was all kinds of stuff that happened.
A friend of mine, Pat Votruba, who had worked the aid station, I think he worked at Camp Kippa. They ended up being, I want to say, 7 or 8 hours after the first runners were expected to get there, because when we go to the course map, we'll kind of explain why, but it was a bloodbath out there in the first 30 miles.
Jamil's running it.
Yes.
Right? But they're changing the cutoffs in midstream.
Yeah. Well, the race director for Cocodona is Steve Adderholt. I don't know if you're familiar with Steve. For those, Steve. Yeah. He is absolutely on it. He's all in, and they've got a full race command team. I mean, this is a huge event. I mean, the scale of preparation, you're talking, nearly 24 aid stations fully stocked with menus of meals and everything. It's not just,
some of which are open for 2+ days.
Yes. They're literally leapfrog, and in some cases the drop bags are shuttled from one point, maybe at mile 30 ahead to mile 180. I can't remember exactly, but we'll go over that.
Little shot of Crown King.
Crown King, yes. Yeah. I was just there a couple weeks ago in the Crown King Scramble, and the fact that the checkpoint is the saloon in Crown King is just absolutely wonderful. It's truly a slice of Arizona. I mean, you start in Black Canyon City at what is normally the finish of the Black Canyon Ultra 60K, and Rock Springs Cafe right there, great pie. I mean, and people are getting there at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and you basically right off the bat for the normal course, which we're back to and we'll talk about in a little bit. But you go uphill, you climb 10,000 feet in the first. In the first 35 miles. Yeah. I mean, you right away, and you're in the desert, and it's in the 90s or low hundreds typically at that point in May. I mean, one of the things that was a problem for the first year was the fact that some runners ran out of water.
Oh, big time ran out.
Yeah. And
not
that
just a little bit.
Yeah. And that has been mitigated, thankfully, because Race Command has now put multiple water stations, water drops on the first 30 miles, because if you didn't stock up at Cottonwood Aid, which is the first aid station about mile 9, I believe, if you don't stock up there, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a really rough 20 miles climbing into the high desert. So, Bryce,
let's jump into the course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bryce, are we able to pull that up? Awesome. Perfect. So it's pretty bonkers. So as you can see, Cottonwood Creek is the first aid station at mile 8. You're running in the lower desert coming out of Black Canyon City. It's pretty rugged, but it's not a ton of climbing at that point. But right after that, it gets to be insane. You can see there's another water station at mile 11. And as we can move north a little bit, Bryce, there's another water drop at mile 25. And
that's a 14-mile section between water.
Yeah, this is not for beginners.
Yeah. And it's still in the warm hot of the desert.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. It's not going to cool down for these runners until they actually get up to the Lane Mountain area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And once they enter Prescott National Forest and hit Lane Mountain, coming out of Lane Mountain, they're actually going to head downhill into Crown King. And Crown King itself, I believe, is about 6,500, 7,000 feet. So they're topping out, fairly high early on. And we had a lot of carnage at Crown King the first year.
Yeah. There were people calling it a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And very strong runners, too. Like, there were, some elites and pro runners that had stopped. And
that's Crown King's the first crew access. Correct?
Yes.
So lots of crews are up there, and big active aid station, and
yeah. Arostra Creek is at mile 53. Camp Kippa is at 63. Camp Kippa is where runners start to, some will start to take those first significant rests. Is there a sleep station at Camp Kippa, Bryce? I believe there is.
That sounds right.
I think so. So Camp Kippa.
There's certainly one at Friendly Pines.
Yes.
The camp there.
And Whiskey Row. I mean, which is really cool. For those who have been to Prescott and are familiar with Whiskey Row, it's a historic stretch of road in Prescott where there's awesome old saloons. The aid station is right in the middle of Whiskey Row. And so you've got people going out to the bars and the saloons, whether it be the Bird Cage or Matt's or whatever, on Whiskey Row. And so the runners actually have to run in there. And typically the first runners are going to get there that first night between, 10, Stringbean would have thrown the curve off the way he ran last year, but he ran a different course. I think Versteeg got there just after midnight in 2021. And because I remember the visual of him running down the street, like right in the middle, with his arms waving, and because he lives there, he.
One of the cool things too, if you zoom in a little bit, Bryce, is they're just running literally right through town.
Yes, absolutely.
And of course, many of them in the middle of the night or in the very wee hours of the morning, but just right through town, across the creek, out the other side. I mean, it's just. They've been out in this desert, harsh environment, and it's going to get harsh again. But that nice little touch into the town, and the vibe of other people, the vibe of their crews, it's pretty cool.
And so you're going to see they run through Prescott, and then they hit Watson Lake. And Watson Lake was where the race started last year, I believe, because of the issues with wildfires.
Near there, yeah.
And so Watson Lake at this year, it's going to be back to normal. So they're going to run through the Dells, which are a beautiful rock formation.
Also, by the way, where the Whiskey Basin race starts and finishes,
just took place
last weekend. So shares some of the trails with Cocodona.
So that's one of the cool things about this race also is that if you've run some of the other Aravaipa events that take place, like in Black Canyon City, Crown King, Prescott, or Flagstaff, you've run some of these events or these trails.
The beauty of this is it's tied them all together.
Absolutely. I mean, I've run plenty of stretches of this, but not the entire thing. Yeah. From Whiskey Row, you head through Prescott Valley, the Iron King and Fain Ranch aid stations. And I would say the next big stop for most runners would be at Mingus Mountain. Now, Mingus Mountain is an area with I guess it's a youth camp set up, so it's perfect for being an aid station, and I believe that's mile 110. Mingus Mountain, it's one of the higher points in the earlier part of the course. If you've run man against horse, you've been up to the top of Mingus Mountain. Legendary Arizona race, one of the first ultras where you're literally racing against horses.
Yeah, incredible. Been around forever.
Absolutely.
A non-Aravaipa race, but just a classic on the Arizona calendar.
Absolutely. Yeah. It takes place in early October. It's actually a big Javelin 100 training run for a lot of people now. Oh, yeah. And then from Mingus Mountain, you get to go through Jerome. And for those who aren't familiar with Jerome, Arizona, It is a very unique place. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite places to go on a day trip or a weekend. It's basically, there's a couple streets, but it's almost just basically a town built entirely of switchbacks into the side of a mountain.
Literally into the side of the mountain.
And
huge old mine.
Yeah. And
just up from town.
The views from Jerome itself are absolutely stunning. You can see forever off to the west when you're hanging out at. They've got some excellent winery tasting rooms there, and a couple of cool old saloons, and also the old Jerome Grand Hotel, which is allegedly haunted.
And home to a nice short race, the Jerome Hill Climb.
Yes.
Classic, been around for a long time. It's on the gravel road, but just straight uphill.
Yeah,
Look it up. It's a great one.
And then when you get done with that, you have to go back down. And after they leave Jerome, they head over to, I believe, to Cottonwood. I believe is the next area that they hit.
It's Clarkdale.
Clarkdale. Yeah, Clarkdale. Cottonwood is kind of the same area. Main Street in Clarkdale is actually a pretty cool area as well. And that's one of the, it kind of brings up again the cool thing about this race. It connects all of these little towns. I love going to these places. I love going to Crown King every year during the Crown King Scramble. Jerome, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Sedona.
Yeah.
I mean, Sedona's become such a popular tourism destination now that it's packed to the gills on weekends. That's one of the benefits of running this, is that you're actually going to hit Sedona on the weekdays, which is a little bit easier of a time. But after they come through Clarkdale, they then head to, I believe, where's that? Can we zoom out a little bit, Bryce?
Yeah. They're going
Dead Horse.
Dead Horse, yeah. And Dead Horse, I know, is one of the larger stations in the larger aid stations in the race as well. From there, they keep heading north, and we'll kind of zoom out a little bit. Awesome, thanks, Bryce.
You got some grindy climbing coming up.
Yeah. I mean, and now they're actually crossing out of the Prescott National Forest into the Coconino National Forest, and they're following this system of trails. Not all of it is actually accessible to the public. In some cases, it is private property, and that's laid out in the Cocodona website, where they actually explain, you can't just up and go and try it. I mean, there are instructions on how you can access most of the course, but certain things like Fane Ranch, I know, for example, is private, so you can't just up and go. But from there, you end up, you're a little bit more than halfway done by the time you're hitting Deer Pass, which is about the time we're probably going to be losing our minds on the live stream.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and we'll talk about our live stream schedule as well here in a little bit. But once they've left Dead Horse Ranch, then the march to Sedona begins, and at that point they've got about 100 miles to go. Sedona itself, if you've never been, look it up on Wikipedia. Use the Google machine. Sedona is one of the most unique places in terms of physical geography that you'll ever see.
And the runners get a lot of those beautiful red rock formations as they head north of Sedona and then east to the Oak Creek crossing, which we understand is got some water, but not a ton. From our sources on the course.
It'll be interesting.
Right
I did hear about some snow on the course further north, and we'll talk and see if we can get a heads up from Bryce on some of that. But after they depart Sedona, they head towards Munns Park, which is a community right off of Interstate 17, about 30 miles south of Flagstaff. Munns Park is kind of a, I don't know. I think of it as a high-end vacation retreat.
Yeah.
It's kind of the maybe Cape Cod or the Hamptons of Arizona when it comes to people hanging out in Munns Park.
But it's that beginning of the Ponderosa Forest.
That's true.
You're right. If you're driving up there on 17, it's right where you top off, and it starts to be on the high plateau that Flagstaff is on, and it's a wonderful, beautiful little spot to get to.
Yeah, because they have to climb Kasner before they hit that, correct,
They
Bryce?
do. It looks like
Yeah.
this coming right here.
Yeah. Kasner is according to people who have run the race, one of the more brutal climbs that they've experienced in their lives.
I've heard also.
Of course, they're also 160, 170 miles into the race, so at that point,
Everything's
any
brutal.
climb is going to hurt. After they've left Munns Park, they head through Kelly Canyon, and then finally they're in Coconino County, and the first major stop in Coconino County is Fort Tuttle. Fort Tuttle, which is, of course, where we hold the Flagstaff Big Pine and Blackout races. And I think for a lot of the runners, that's kind of the gateway to the finish of the race. Fort Tuttle is a pretty large park area, and you're not quite done yet, though, because you've got enough. This is where actually the Eldon Crest 36 starts. So you've got 36 miles to go from this point, basically. And at that point, the Eldon Crest runners will, I believe they start on Friday. And you have to go through Walnut Canyon. Basically, rather than going straight up towards the town of Flagstaff, which is like the finish line is only a couple miles from there.
Yeah.
And
That's cruel.
That's
is cruel.
very.
Yeah. I mean, they're right there.
You have to do a huge
Right
loop
there.
around the
Finish
town.
line's right there. And they're going.
Yeah, and Walnut Canyon is a gorgeous area. I've hiked that in the past as well. And then they have what I consider to be my least favorite part of the course. Once they actually cross Route 66, in fact, they head up to Mount Eldon, and they climb the really rugged, hard side of Mount Eldon, coming up from the road, and it's not fun.
It's not fun at any time.
Yeah,
It's
I don't like.
especially
I
not fun.
personally don't like Eldon, but I don't like climbing it. It's pretty.
Yeah.
I didn't mind driving up there a couple of years ago when I went to hang out at the Eldon Aid, and I know for a fact that Aravaipa Racing Team member and runner Pete Mortimer is going to be up there grilling his wares.
Is he?
He's going to be serving Pete's Meats up there.
Nice.
So for the runners,
By the way, our word on the street is that there's going to be some snow on the climb up Eldon.
I did hear.
Significant amounts of snow.
Bryce,
as
you
well
had
as
some
down
post-holing going
as well
on?
as down in Watson Canyon.
A slight bit.
Yeah.
well, I mean, the one thing about this, we are doing our preview a little bit earlier than normal, so we've got 10 days.
10
so
days for it to
we'll see.
potentially
But
soften
then,
up.
then again, if it all melts away, we might have a lot more water further down the course.
Yeah.
And then once they get to the top of Eldon, they're not done, but they're done with most of the
They
hard
might
stuff.
be smelling the barn.
Yeah, at that point, it's all downhill from there, literally. And then, of course, they head down and exit the trail system through Buffalo Park, a very popular place to get exercise in Flagstaff.
Famous park where you could see Olympians.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I went up there to see what the buzz was about, and I thought it was so cool. There's just trails going in every direction, and people moving very fast on those trails. But then once you get through Buffalo Park, you basically head down the streets of Flagstaff, including the famous Left on Birch that Matt Feldake coined last year. As we do our best to follow all of these runners as they come in. We don't get everybody, but we get a large portion of them.
Well, let's talk. That's been a highlight of the first two live streams for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That I guess it's a golden day or
Yes.
golden days instead of a golden hour. But that triumphant run through the streets of Flagstaff, where the live stream crew has been able to get some follow cams on. I mean, talk about you've broadcasted that now for both years.
Mm-hmm.
What's the vibe like on the streets of Flagstaff as these? I mean, they're not coming through in droves. They're coming through one at a time, pretty much.
So the first year, I actually went up to Flagstaff to see the finish. The last couple of runners crossed the finish line, and a friend of mine, Andre Lee, was the final finisher. And it's
Andre Lee, a friend of ours, of us all.
absolutely everybody loves Andre.
Everybody loves Andre.
But it's such a unique experience to be up there and see it. I mean, you don't normally have a huge only the highest profile races have like a crowd of people at the finish line to see everybody finish. I mean, you're talking Western States, Hard Rock, and Cocodona might be about it at this
Right.
point. And that's really what Jamil envisioned. He wanted to see a situation where people are starting to line the streets of Flagstaff to see these runners in, and they are picking up on that. And one of the cool things about broadcasting this race is that we get to know the runners on a fairly intimate level. You get 5 days with some of these people, and you get to go over their friends and their family are contributing to our live streams and the chats and talking to us. I mean, I remember we had one gentleman, I wish I could remember his name, but we had a filmer basically just relaying messages. This gentleman, it was heartbreaking. He missed the cutoff, and he knew he was going to miss the cutoff as he entered Whiskey Row. But Jen Laughlin was filming and following him, and we're basically just passing messages to him and talking to him because it was like late at night, and you know, we didn't really have eyes on any of our elites or anything like that. But and so we want to see what else is going on out there, and we get all of this time to basically share all these stories. And this year, I'm really excited because I know that they put out a runner questionnaire that, how shall we say, is robust.
Oh my gosh. It'll give us plenty of fodder for the downtime.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things about this race is that there's going to be plenty of downtime. So, I mean, it's a whole bunch of hurrying up and waiting. Like, you want to see all of the elites as they hit those aid stations and those crew interactions, the stuff that people crave during those live streams. But then you have nothing for, you know, hours sometimes. I mean, I remember the very first year we did it, we were going to sign off at 10 p.m. on Monday night. And then all of a sudden we see Jamil come into, I want to say it was at mile 60 or thereabouts. It might have been Camp Kippa. And he just comes to sit down by the campfire, and of course, this was his idea. Yeah. And so we talked to him, and it's one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done with a runner during one of these events, where we're just like, how you feeling? He's like, yeah, I don't know. what am I thinking?
So before we jump to the race, though, because you're on this, what is the live stream schedule this year, Chris?
Okay.
We're gonna we're doing things a little bit differently this year, but both of us are participating.
Yeah.
And we've got a cast of many, but how's it going to play out? Because people tuning in now are probably wondering, you know, how's the live stream going to play out this year?
So my understanding is that the live stream is going to be Monday morning, probably an hour or two before the race start. I'm going to be on with Matt Feldake doing a preview, and we're going to have various teams. I know that we're bringing Finn Melanson and Brett Hornig in. I know that you're going to be on, I'm going to be on, Matt's going to be on, and I am shaking the trees and calling in every favor to friends because we're going to be in Flagstaff the whole week, and we're going to be like right close to the finish line. That's one of the things that I loved doing the coverage last year, but I like being out there to do the coverage.
So just to be clear, for the first 2 years, you staged it out of here.
Yes.
Like we've done with Black Canyon, with Javelina.
Yeah.
But this year, moving the live stream studio up to Flag.
And I can't wait. I think it's going to be so awesome. And I'm still working my day job that week. I'm going to be basically, you know, counting things and doing my normal accounting work, and you know, from 8 to 4, and then from 5 till whenever, or whatever, 6 till whenever, I'm going to jump on and do the live streaming. And so Monday and Tuesday, the 1st and the 2nd, we're going to be live from about 5 or 6 in the morning, tentatively till midnight. Now, the out time is always a loose thing because, for instance, that first year we caught Jamil when we were going to go off the air, and then as soon as we got done with Jamil, we're like doing our wrap up, and all of a sudden somebody tells us we've got eyes on Versteeg as he's hitting Whiskey Row. Well, we're going to stay on for that. So we ended up being on till like 2 in the morning. So, you know, we do our best to bring as much of it as we can. And the first 2 days we're going to be bringing 18 hours of coverage or thereabouts each day, and then on Wednesday we get weird. Wednesday we start our coverage, I believe, again at about 6 or so in the morning, and the plan is to go nonstop through the end of the race. So Wednesday morning through Saturday afternoon, and we're going to have the Sedona Canyons 125 starting on, I believe that's Wednesday, or is that Tuesday when it starts, Bryce? Sedona Canyons?
I think it starts Wednesday. Yep. Because it's got a 75-hour cutoff.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. and then Eldon Crest on Friday, but we're going to be on. I don't know if we're going to be commentated the full time. We might have some quiet hard cam finish line setups, but we're going to be on for a whole heck of a lot of time this week.
That's fantastic.
And I've already talked to several, like I said, I've talked to Pete Mortimer is going to join us, Rory Monahan, the trail gangsta himself, Colleen Lingley, Aravaipa Racing Team captain. These are people that have given, verbals, I guess, to say that they would join me. And I've got a few others that I'm going to call in favors on. And, and that's one of the things also as well. Like we might be doing a show together, but we also might be like changing in and out. I mean, for instance, heck, Jeff Browning is running Eldon Crest, or no, he's running Sedona Canyons.
Yeah.
He's going to be done fairly early, and then he can come and hang out. We'll riff. Yeah, we'll riff with Jeff for sure. We'd love to do that.
Viewers, just keep this in mind. Plan your work weeks accordingly.
Yes.
All you ultra nerds out there, you're going to have a lot of time. Aid Station Fireball, you're not getting any work done
I
this week.
spoke with the owner of, I believe, Berkeley Park Running Company out of Colorado at Hard Rock after we had done the first one, and he said that they basically had it on in the background the entire week.
Yeah.
I love seeing the setups, and that's one of the things that I will, to help like get more content. I'll be like, hey, post to Instagram #Cocodona250 and show us your setup of watching and working, and I'll put those things on.
Yeah.
I love it. I got no shame.
Yeah.
But we've talked so much about like what makes Cocodona special. We really haven't even gotten into the runners yet.
Well, let's do it.
Let's do it. When it comes to the men's side, I feel like we're looking at a handful of names, and one of them is extremely intriguing. We'll get to that. But we have the original winner of the first Cocodona 250, Michael Versteeg, coming back. I think that he's definitely on the short list of runners. We also have a couple other high-end runners, too. We have Michael McKnight, who finished second last year and is a maestro at the 200-mile and above distance. We have Jeff Garmeyer, who has had multiple respectable finishes. I believe 14th and 5th were his two finishes in this race. Pete Kostelnik, you're talking about a guy who's won Badwater, a man who has run across the country. He's no stranger to 200-plus mile races. One of the guys he's been training with is a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Strayhorn. I don't know if you're familiar with Jimmy.
I'm not.
He's younger. He's about 30, but he's got a 16:08 100-miler in his resume as well. He's out of Camp Verde, so he lives on the course.
Yeah.
And so, he and Pete, I know, have been training, and I talked to Pete about it, and I actually ran into Jimmy at Jackpot, and that's when I found out he was running it. So I'm excited for those.
I've got a couple.
Sure.
They're the man of the people, Kevin Goldberg.
Yes.
Kevin Goldberg has been a featured guest on the live stream over the years, especially last year. He was fourth at Cocodona last year. Interestingly enough, is a Triple Crown of 200s finisher from 2019 and a sub 24 Western States on his buckle from last year.
He's one of those well-rounded
He's
runners.
a well-rounded runner. And I got a name off the internet, Killian Korth.
Yeah, I saw
who
Killian.
has a sub 24 at Leadville back in 19, and I think must be from Texas, or at least spends a fair bit of time in Texas, because he ran a really impressive Cactus Rose 150 back in 2021.
He's also got a podium finish at Ouray 100, which is one of the hardest 100-milers imaginable.
And not to mention, his name's Killian.
That's true. so that just means he's going to be good in the mountains for sure.
But then we've got our international man of mystery. Let's jump in right now.
Yeah,
Josh Berry.
Thank you very much to Allison Mercer and the fastestknowntime.com people for helping us with our research on this one. We have a guy I've only read about in fleeting stories in Josh Perry.
Yeah.
And Josh Perry has the Arizona Trail self-supported FKT and has the Pacific Crest Trail northbound FKT. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has logged long miles. I mean, that Pacific Crest FKT was 55 days. And so you're talking, there's no question as to whether or not he can grind. And he is obviously very fast at handling these. This is a short hop for him.
Absolutely. But you know what? I was doing some research for this show, and this international man of mystery kind of name came up. So, of course, like all good Ultra geeks, I go to Ultra Sign Up. 0 results
Nothing.
on Ultra. Someone's going to have to help him pin his bib on.
Yeah, I'm curious.
This is his first entry in an actual race, at least that, the world follows,
Yeah.
in his life. And he's doing the Cocodona 250, which is, of course, it's a shorty for him.
Yeah.
So that's the most intriguing story, just from a runner's standpoint. He's an we've got several FKT machines here. You talked about Jeff Garmire, but we just revisiting his long trail FKT back in the day, unsupported northbound, I believe, John Muir Trail.
Yeah.
John Muir Trail has a lot of FKTs because unsupported, supported, self-supported, northbound, southbound. But so it's going to be interesting to see sort of the pure 200 guys like McKnight, although he's done some FKTs also, and Michael Versteeg, and then a pure FKT guy like Josh Perry. I also like to comment on Garmire too, because, and I think when we get to the women and talk about Sally McRae, it'll be similar. He did a really nice job in the race we covered
at Jackpot.
in Nevada at Jackpot.
200 miles in 48 hours.
The 48 hours, he did 200 miles. He ran steady and smooth with very little downtime. Obviously not in his wheelhouse of big mountain stuff.
Yeah.
But got lots of time on his feet, on pavement, having to do all the nutrition thing. And 200 miles in 48 hours, I don't care if it's on a little 1.3 mile loop or 2.3 mile loop. That's legit.
Well, he's been sneaky about this because we say this about Jeff Garmire not being a runner and being more of a through hiker, but look at the last two races. At least I've seen him at Jackpot and the Across the Years Last Person Standing.
Yeah,
which he won both of them, and they're both flat, like looped races. So this guy that we associate normally with these wild and crazy, 100, 200, 300, 400 mile FKTs. Oh yeah, no, he's grinding it up on the flat stuff too. Yeah. So I think that, and now he's on the Aravaipa racing team. So I feel like Jeff is rounding out his resume in a very unique fashion.
I want to mention one more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
A guy I've known for years, who is I think going to be doing his first race over the 200-mile distance. Dominic Grossman.
Yes.
From Wrightwood, California. Has Hard Rock finishes, Western States finishes, has spent a couple of years going for the Angeles Crest 100 course record. Not necessarily seeing him as a winner here, but certainly someone who likes to get out of his comfort zone, especially as he's getting a little bit later into his career. He's a dad now with a couple of kids, and it'll be fun to see him again, but it'll also be fun to see how he does in something as big and bold as this.
Yeah, he's got top 10, top 15 finishes at Hard Rock, Cocodona, and Angeles Crest. He's a solid runner.
Yeah.
So,
oh, yeah.
And again, things change with the 200-mile distance. Like the people that you would normally associate, there might be some rise and fall with some of it. A lot can happen over the course of 4 or 5 days.
Now, I'm afraid I didn't do much research on this, but we were talking about Jackpot. Did you check out any sort of elder statesmen that might be in Cocodona? Any 60 and overs?
I believe Carl Balloon is. I can actually check that.
Okay. We'll when we get to the live stream, of course, we'll also be featuring people from the middle and the back of the pack as the race is progressing. But there are usually a couple to a few older runners who tackle these big races and spend most of it hiking, and I imagine there'll be a few out here.
Yeah, we've got a few people in the 60-plus range. We do have Bart Mangino from Prescott Valley, Arizona, who is going for his he'll be 70 on race day.
Wow.
And he finished it last year. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so
good story to watch.
Yeah, we'll be following that because we've got a lot of time to talk about stuff. Let's slide over to the women's side. I think that there are a couple of big names, and I think there's a name that I've had to remind people of how good this runner is, and so we'll get into it. Who are some of the women you've got your eye on for the Cocodona 250?
Well, let's. I want to hold on the big names for a second and comment first on Desiree Clark.
Yes.
Has raced extensively, maybe not as many Aravaipa races as you.
She's a former Aravaipa racing team member.
A lot of Aravaipa races.
Yeah.
All kinds of different distances. Must have moved here from Pennsylvania because has a great list of burly Pennsylvania results like World's End and Heiner, and so she's got a little bit of everything. I'll be interested to see how. I believe this will be her first go at the Cocodona
Yes.
250.
She's run the Mogollon Monster multiple times, including, I believe, a top 5 finish. And like I said, she's a former Aravaipa Racing Team member. She does have a couple of local course records on some of our ultras, or at least she used to.
So it's likely that she'll have a lot of support out there and a lot going on. And a second one is L. Spacek or Spacek.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we have the pronunciation right on that by the time we get to the live stream. A win at Mogollon Monster.
Yes.
As well as tons of mountain races and a finish at UTMB back in 2017. So somebody who's raced a lot of different things. I don't think she'll be intimidated or put off by the magnitude of this race.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about those two.
One name that you're probably more familiar with than I am, because of your time at Western States, Eliza Lapierre.
Eliza Lapierre. Let me share a little bit about Eliza Lapierre. So 6 top 10 Western States finishes, lives in Vermont, works for Untapped, that delicious gel that's made from Vermont maple syrup, and has made a foray into some longer stuff, a few FKT attempts. Her coach is Jason Koop, has been for a long time. Eliza goes for it just about every time she's towing the line. She's tough, that Vermont tough, and I think the heat could be a challenge. That's what's gotten her in her few unsuccessful years at Western States. But she did sneak out here for a 5-day training camp on Coop's suggestion. You might remember Coop ran the race last year on the different course. And he did something similar, came and did a 4-day training camp. So Eliza was here on Black Canyon Week, getting as much of the course as she could. She didn't meddle into private property and so forth, but and didn't get up into the snow, and that was huge up there in Flagstaff in February. But she's come and she's ready to put in a good strong result. I mean, an Annie Hughes type result would not surprise me out of Eliza, but anything can happen in a 200 miler. She's never gone this far.
Yeah, and I know this is a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Of course, one of the big names that's running this year is Sally McRae. And I know you've had discussions with Sally about this, and you've also got, you talked with her quite a bit.
Yeah, well, Sally's an old friend of mine, a Western States person, just a bubbly, fun, friendly, happy person. As she told one of us or both of us, she came to Jackpot. It was interesting. She came to Jackpot for a 100-mile training run.
Yeah.
But she also said to me, I was so psyched to do this because it was a Friday race, and I was able to get home to my daughter's track race on Saturday.
But she didn't. I believe she didn't even realize it was considered a national championship that she was running. And she got what, 4th?
She got 4th.
Yeah. I mean, pretty amazing.
And she is bordering on scared about the distance, which is pretty cool for someone as experienced as Sally McRae. A little sneak peek. I'm having Sally on my podcast, Crack a Brew with AJW, right before the race. I'm going to talk to her next week, and we're going to talk a lot about this because think of the versatility. She has a successful Cocodona. Within one calendar year, she wins Badwater and has a successful Cocodona. Oh, and by the way, gets a national championship or close to a national championship at a road 100-miler. So it'll be great to see her out here. It'll be great to see how she does, and I'm looking forward to seeing her. She'll be cheerful and happy when we get her on to some aid station interactions.
So one of the names that I actually got to have input on the bib numbers this week. When they assigned the low number bib numbers, and one of the names that I brought up was something that somebody, I guess, people didn't realize how talented this runner had proven herself to be in this event. Dawn Greenwald. Greenwald out of Flagstaff.
So what number did you give her?
She's gonna be number 2.
Nice.
So Dawn is the highest returning female finisher at Cocodona this year.
Huh.
She finished 2nd in 2021. Under the original course. So she's run the original course. She ran Barkley this year. She's super strong. And I feel like maybe she doesn't have the reputation that a lot of the other runners do, But this is somebody you definitely can't sleep on because she's shown that she can do this. I mean, if you look at her ultra sign up, and this is the whole thing where it's kind of, the longer distances change things. She's got some, she's got a solid running resume. There's no doubt about it. I mean, she has, some pretty quick 50K times, at least compared to me. But it's not like she's known for, a history of high-end results. So this is kind of an opportunity where a runner like her is going to show that, she can get it done. And it's entirely possible. I wouldn't be surprised to see her on the podium again.
Yeah.
There is one other woman that is returning that has been on the podium, and I think she's a friend of ours, a friend of the community here in Arizona, Aravaipa racing team member Sarah Ostaszewski.
Oh, yeah.
And Sarah got third last year, and I believe she got fifth in 2021. Sarah, I mean, she's been running all over the world. She went to New Zealand for Tarawera 100-miler, and I think she stayed down there for like a month. And she lives in Flagstaff. She's done this race twice. She's actually, and I'll bring that up also. There are 8 people running this race going for their third finish, and she is one of them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So Sarah is somebody who has gotten, who has made some strides over the last couple of years, having moved to Flagstaff and training in that environment. I mean, it's, the results bear out. If you go to Flagstaff to run, you're gonna get faster.
You're gonna get better. I've got one more too. You might recall when we had the Black Canyon live stream, we had some special guests, and one of them was Corinne Malcolm, who came down to help with the live stream, and she tipped me off to a woman that she coaches, Alicia Jenkins.
Okay.
Who was third at the Moab 240 in 2021, and a brutally difficult, kind of below the radar Washington State 100-miler called Teenaway 100 with over 30,000 feet of vertical. She won that in 2022 in 33 hours.
Okay.
So Corinne's got her focused and ready to rock. So I think we want to keep our eyes on Alicia Jenkins as well as the rest of the women we've just mentioned.
All right, I'm going to give a shout out to these 8 competitors. They finished Cocodona in 2021 under the original course. They finished it in 2022 with the alternate course, and now they're coming back in 2023 for that third bite at the apple. I'm just going to go in alphabetical order because that's the way that I've got it sorted out. But Carol Balloon from California going for his third finish. Courtney Boyle from Lakewood, Colorado, going for her third finish. Aaron Fleischer from Nevada. Jeff Garmeyer, who we've talked about. Andrew Glaze is going for his third finish. Brian Janzik, I believe would be how that's pronounced, out of Tucson. Sarah Ostaszewski, who we mentioned. And Wes Plate. So those 8 are going to be going for their third finish at Cocodona 250. And so I'd love to talk to them and find out what keeps them coming back to this race year after year, because it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, but it's hard.
So if you're a newbie at Cocodona, look for one of those 8 runners and stick with them.
They know how to get it
They
done.
know how to get it done.
Absolutely.
So hey, before we wrap up, Chris, I'd like to ask you. You've been around this race now. You've been around Aravaipa live streams and everything else. What are, aside from the fact that the studio is going to be up at Flag instead of down here in Phoenix, what are you looking most forward to for Cocodona Race Week this year?
I'm looking forward to learning the stories and meeting the people through the narrative of the race. I feel like it's an opportunity for us to find out so much about so many people, and it gets emotional. Last year, there was a husband and wife couple. I wish I could remember their names, but basically they finished arm in arm with maybe an hour or so before the cutoff. And it was just amazing. The Vidrios, Saul and Colleen Vidrio, out of California. They finished in 121 hours, 37 minutes, and 10 seconds. And they were basically just arm in arm walking down the streets. Stephen Park, when Stephen Park finished, he was the final finisher last year and finished with under 4 minutes to go. And when Jamil was filming him and followed, you could hear Jamil's just like, he's not easily impressed. Yeah. And Jamil comes around the corner of that final, like you have that alleyway that you have to go down to finish the race, to the finish line. And all of a sudden you hear Jamil go, oh my God. And you can see the entire, like what felt like every person who had even a passing interest is standing there making this huge spirit tunnel for Stephen Park. And Stephen Park is like, we talk about the ultra lean. He was 330, and it was, and he basically just did everything he could to get across the finish line and promptly fell down. It was on the cover of Ultra Running magazine.
Yeah.
I mean, normally those are reserved for what Jim and Courtney and Camille are doing, but this was like the everyman story we could identify with. And we get to know these runners, and we also have the runner tracking for this race is top notch.
Yeah.
We actually have like the satellite GPS tracking, so we can see exactly where everyone is. Don't panic if your runner is a tenth of a mile off the course. Chances are it's just a ping.
Yeah.
But that's part of what I love about it. It's such a, I would say, romantic type of experience to cover this race, and you get to meet the people that are watching it as well. I have had so much positive response over the coverage of Cocodona, and it is by no means the most streamlined or professional race we cover. Like, I would say that's Black Canyon. Black Canyon, because it's 9 hours, boom, in and out, and we cover the the elites and everything. We cover the elites extensively in this race. We have a lot of time, but we cover everything. We're flip-flopping back and forth, and we do our best to bring as much of everybody as we can. We have so much time to tell the stories. Last year, it was great because we had volunteer filmers log 70, 80 miles running up and down the streets of Flagstaff, filming these runners. And when we would see them, we would get a bib number and we'd enter it. And because of the frequency or lack thereof of these finishers as they're coming into town, we look them up. We're looking at their race results. We're looking at their social media, and we're getting to we're actually in some cases able to talk to them as they're coming down that last mile or two. My friend personally, Lisa Kravitz, I woke up on Saturday morning to see her coming to the finish line, and so I was able to actually. Jamil was filming her, so I was able to get message, and also Shad, I believe, was filming as well. But it's just cool because. We know about, Sally McRae and Michael Versteeg, and they're going to be fun to follow for sure. But, we're going to learn about some people that we had no idea existed, on Monday. And we'll have become, really wrapped up in and emotionally invested in their story by Saturday. That's one of the cool things about this race.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. I'm looking forward to something a little bit different, a little bit more like ultra geeky, related to this. The first time I'm witnessing a 200-plus mile race. We've come to a point in the sport of ultra running, or I think we're pretty close to a point in ultra running, where we, because of science, because of technology, because of coaching, because of enough people running in the sport, that there tends to be a tried and true recipe for success. In 50Ks, 50 milers, 100Ks, 100 milers. There's a way to do it and a way not to do it. The 200-mile distance is the next frontier. There is not one way to run a 200-plus mile race across central Arizona.
Yeah.
And to be able to have a front row seat at that, managing nutrition, foot care, poles, space between aid, hydration, sleep, where crew dynamics. There's so many variables. Many of us have come to the sport because it's the Wild West of sports. This is the wildest of the Wild West of ultra running. And to have a front row seat to it and to be able to share it to people on the Aravaipa YouTube channel for 5.5 days is really incredible. So I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, I remember seeing my first 100 milers and running my first 100 milers 25 years ago, and it was still the wild. You're like, oh, he does it this way and she does it that way. I mean, just in this list, we're probably going to, in the elites, we'll see Mike McKnight with a certain strategy, Garmeyer with another strategy, certainly probably Perry with another strategy. I mean, in a way, it's kind of like the Iditarod of ultra running. So I can't wait to see that and to share it with you. I think it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I think it's going to be wonderful too. I guess if you do have any questions, we've got time for maybe one or two if you've got anything. But we'll go right to our picks. Who you got? As far as I guess, first on the women's side, who do you think?
I think Eliza's going to win. I think it's been a while since Eliza Lapierre's had a top result. I think she's. I know from Jason that she's been 100% focused on this since about November, and she's really intrigued by the 200 plus mile distance. So I'm gonna go with her. And while our sources did tell me he was a little bit under the weather over the last couple days, I'm really pulling for Michael McKnight. I know he's had some rough races, and he and his counterpart who were doing the two-way on the AZT really didn't work out. But I'm pulling for Michael to win it on the men's side. How about you?
On the women's side, they say that progress is not linear, but I'm going to say that in this case it is. I think that Sarah Ostaszewski is going to win Cocodona 250. She finished 5th the first year, 3rd last year. I think that this is
odd numbers.
I think that this is going to be the year where she puts it all together. I mean, she made significant improvement. Not just the times are hard to gauge because of the two different courses.
Yeah.
But she just looked like she was much more ready the second time, and I think that the third time is going to be the charm, and I think that she is going to be the winner of the Cocodona 250. And I usually get lucky with those. Like I can snipe those for some reason. The winners of some of the races we live stream.
How about the men?
On the men's side, I'm going to throw a dart, and I'm going to say Josh Perry.
You are.
I think, again, this is just me, being silly, but he's got an Arizona Trail FKT. So does String Bean, and so does Versteeg. If Whit Weisberg were winning the race, I would have picked him as well. Yeah. But I think that Josh Perry, even though I know nothing about him, could not pick him out of a lineup. I think that he's going to be the winner.
So the AZ Trail FKT magic.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we know one thing. If he wins, he'll have a 100% ultra sign-up.
This is true. And then, 'cause I know some people get very particular about defending their...
He's an FKT guy. He probably doesn't even know what ultra sign-up is.
Though, and if he does, he doesn't really care about it. Obviously, we're also going to have some other events as well. We've got the Sedona Canyons 125 and the Eldon Crest 36. We didn't really talk as much about those. Cocodona is the main event. In terms of the Sedona Canyons, I would say that the top two names are Jeff Browning on the men's side and Denise Barasa on the women's side. I mean, you're talking about some really experienced stout runners there. In the Eldon Crest, I could see Nicole Hansen, Aravaipa Racing Team member, winning the 36-miler, and Ryan Raff, again, another Aravaipa Racing Team member, winning those as well. And one of the fun things about the Eldon Crest is that both Pam Reed and John Fegervisi are using it as a tune-up for their Summer of Hell.
Oh my gosh, so yes indeed, that'd be a fun little story.
Those that aren't familiar, Feggy and Pam are doing the Western States Hard Rock Double, and in this case it's, what you said, 3 weeks apart?
Yes. Yeah, 3 weeks apart.
And you've done that before?
Yes.
And how did you feel after that?
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. So, I mean, they're both training well. They're both super experienced. I'm not worried about their being able to succeed, but I'm glad they're doing the Eldon Crest and not the longer one.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, in the case of Pam, you're talking about a multiple-time Badwater winner. In the case of Feggy, one of the few, the proud, the Barkley finishers. Yeah. So there's nothing that is going to be thrown their way that they're not ready for.
We had a great conversation with Feggy after Black Canyon. Great. That was a lot of fun to bring him in and just talk to him about what his plans are. I want to mention one more thing about the Sedona Canyons, because I was chatting with Jamil about this. One of the attractive parts of Sedona Canyon, and it's a first-year event, by the way, that they've added these two shorter distances, is it has a 75-hour cutoff.
That's pretty generous.
So there are a lot of races with really, really challenging cutoffs, but that means you can do 30-minute miles and finish it.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who might be looking for something that has accessible cutoffs in a beautiful place at a beautiful time of year, take a look at the Sedona Canyons.
Well, I think that about does it for us. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors for Cocodona: Speedland, Satisfy, Catula, Spring Energy, DiscoverFlagstaff.com, Gnarly, Tannery, Ultraspire, Squirrel's Nut Butter, Rob Carr coaching, Uptown Pub House, and Latinos Run. It truly takes a village to put on an event such as this. And I am really excited for those interested in tuning in to the live stream. It's going to start Monday, May 1st, I think at 5 a.m. And we're going to go, 17, 18 hours those first couple days. And then Wednesday morning, we're going straight through to the finish. And we're going to try our best to capture everybody. This is one of the cool things about this race. Everybody gets their moment in the sun. Everybody gets their moment in the spotlight. I mean, we're following along these finishers for several minutes, and as they're heading into Flagstaff, heading into the town proper. And
so I guess it's safe to say, Chris, that for those viewers who enjoyed our Aravaipa After Dark during Black Canyon and Javelina, they'll have plenty of Aravaipa After Dark to enjoy.
Absolutely.
During Cocodona week. I
know that Matt Feldake will be joining us on the call. Brett Horning and Finn Melanson are also going to be taking us through the middays, I believe, handling the afternoon show, as it were, I guess, if we're talking about it being in a broadcast medium.
And then a cast of many that we're just going to pull off the street and bring in to help.
That's a
literal.
literal.
Yeah,
that's a literal description.
Especially
of it.
since we're going to be up in Flag,
Yeah.
we'll literally pull them off.
Yeah, like I said, I've already talked to a few willing people, and I'm going to, shake every tree and find people, not only to sit in with me, but to take my place.
Yeah.
Because I know that, I'm gonna be really busy that week. I'm gonna be excited to be busy, but. I gotta go and I gotta get my pizzacletta. I gotta go and get my my coffee in town. I gotta, there are certain things that I have to do when I'm in Flagstaff. I'm actually heading up after this tonight to Flagstaff. I'm gonna stay up there this weekend. I'm gonna work with former podium finisher Pete Mortimer, who's been coaching me, and we're gonna we'll talk about what we're doing, but I'll see if I can maybe sneak a peek around Walnut Canyon, or dare I say climb Eldon, to see what
make sure
things are looking like.
Pete, make sure you talk to Pete about coming on for a little bit of the live stream.
Oh, he can't wait.
Okay, good.
Last year it was wonderful. We had a great time. Pete came on, and Pete is for those that are not familiar, he's a very fun individual, and we were doing our live stream, and he had a little bottle of something to help calm his nerves a little bit. And what's funny is that Pete is from the UK, and you wouldn't really know it. He doesn't have a big accent at all until the whiskey bottle starts to go down, and then he
gets a little lilt.
Well, then he sounds like somebody out of a Dickensian novel, perhaps. But I think that's about it. I can't wait. It's 10 days away. Just biding the time and counting the minutes. But once we get up to Flagstaff, it's going to be pretty wonderful to follow these hundreds of runners as they traverse 250, 125, or 36 miles across the Arizona terrain. So,
well, thanks a lot, Chris, and viewers, we'll see y'all during the live stream.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, you can get some nice Cocodona swag. We've got hats, we've got shirts. We're modeling a couple of them ourselves.
Nice Cocodona stuff.
And we'll see you in 10 days at the Cocodona 250 live stream, brought to you by Aravaipa Running.